Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 102. Streaming live on Facebook Live for the last time on Periscope, Twitter, YouTube Live, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief extraordinaire, Nick Villano. Nick, our last day on Periscope, it's being discontinued by Twitter. I looked at our records. Let's Go Devils podcast as a whole, over 150,000 views. Lifetime views, year to date, since 2017. We're going to miss you, Periscope. We're going to miss you, but we're going to figure a way next week, or maybe starting tomorrow, to be on Twitter Live. And it may require me holding up my phone at the screen and just holding my hand out like this.
It's getting archaic. Sam. But how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. It's foggy outside in beautiful New Jersey. Sped home, a little hungry. Got my smart water. Texting Chico Resch today. Talking about what's going on with this team. But overall, I'm doing okay. What about yourself? Is the stove getting hot over there in Tampa?
Yeah. I mean, it's always hot in Tampa, Sam. It was close to the 90s today, and it's still March, so I wasn't a fan of that. We're getting some cooler temperatures later in the week. And I was talking to Vinny Parisi today. Not exactly Chico Resch, but still somewhat famous, right? People know who
personality Vinny Parisi is. in Vinny Parisi. He's a big personality. I like Vinny, except for when we play the game.
Yeah, we got baseball coming up tomorrow. I mean, it's a big week. It's fun. Trade deadline's in a couple weeks. Batman's here. He's the cat that always meows, and he's headbutting my leg. So I'm trying to figure out what he's looking for. But he's hanging out. Here, buddy. You can say hello to everybody real quick. Here you go. Say hello. Hi.
Wow.
That's Batman. He does not like it. But he's leaving now. He's gone now, Sam. You missed it. You missed your opportunities. He's going to get treats. The wife came in to try to distract the cat. But that's very, and then everybody see, I don't know, you probably heard him there. That's very 2020 and very 2021. Is like cats showing up on live podcasts, but we've been doing that since 2019, Sam, because we've been live at home forever.
Oh, of course, we go live with these podcasts. Live. We go live with our reaction. Well, yeah. Sometimes we do that.
Sometimes that's starting to heat up. It's not bad.
Yeah, that's going to start heating up.
And Sam, I got antibodies flowing through my body right now, so that means plans could start coming into place. We could start doing live podcasts. We could start doing live events. We could start having me come to New Jersey and doing some big things. There's, we have to talk. We're both very busy individuals, humble brag, but there's a lot of big nights in the works for the Devils coming up. So, trade deadline, and then there's free agency, eventually there's the draft. The draft, I think it's going to be a big night. So, maybe we could do some live stuff for that, but we gotta figure it all out. We got time, but it's going to be a fun summer.
Well, yeah, you know what? 20% capacity right now, the Prudential Center. Things are starting to open up. Still have to be careful, folks. This podcast is going to be traveling on the road, maybe in a city near you. You never know. Pop-up podcasts are going to come back. Remember, we used to do those pop-up podcasts randomly somewhere. Yeah. You and I did one near Amalie Arena that one time. So it's gonna be fun. You know what's also that time of year is NHL trade deadline. It's like one of the most wonderful times of the year, just like free agent frenzy. When that happens, but
Yeah.
a lot last night against the Bruins, stock is high. Trade value just went up a little bit. And then you hear all the rumors and everybody talking and all that. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
how I
I
approach
thought
it.
it was going to be a lot busier at this point. I thought, more trades would have come up, but only Eric Stahl was really moved. He went to Montreal a couple days ago. Beyond that, you obviously had the Pierre-Luc Dubois Patrick Laine trade, but that was kind of a different beast in itself. And I got a piece coming out tomorrow, Sam. And this is perfect place to plug. Vinny Parisi always was the guy who did the mock trades, and I used to do them, and they usually just get you yelled at because I'm not an NHL GM and figuring these things out. But you know what? I'm back in the game. 5 major fake trades coming out tomorrow. Gonna be a lot of fun. Y'all are gonna yell at me, but guess what, Sam? At the end of the day, we end up with Patrick Laine. Big. It'll be huge.
Wow.
It's going to be fun. Yeah. We just get Jack Hughes a scoring winger, Sam. Get him a scoring winger. I'm sick of people being like, Jack Hughes is not looking so hot. Huh? No, he looks fine. He looks great sometimes. He looks fine. He's playing defense. He's playing both sides. He's playing the half wall. Yeah, he lost some weight because of the COVID thing, and Lindy Ruff admitted as much. And that's taken some things off his game. And it happens. Like when you get a severe sickness in the middle of the season, then have to play every other day for the rest of the season. Yeah, it's going to suck. But he's showing so much skill. He's showing an NHL level of skill this year that we didn't see last year. We were seeing, he doesn't have the points, but he literally got a shot on goal, and it just he just hasn't gotten the bounces, Sam. Like he has high danger chances. He's putting himself in good places. He had that pass to I want to say it was Palmieri. Yeah, right? I think it was Palmieri. He passed to Palmieri to spring him for a shot right in front of Halak. I don't know why I blanked on the backup goalie's name. Halak. He had a shot right in front of Halak. He couldn't put it home, but he saw a break in the defense. He held the zone, and these are the things you want to see. He's doing everything right except for scoring goals, and it's gonna come, people. I know we're impatient because last year sucked, and this year sucks, but we got to give it time. We got to let it wait. But Sam, moving past yesterday. I didn't like yesterday, so I'm going to move past it.
Okay, let's move forward.
Tonight we got a really good guest. I'm really excited about Sean Shapiro. He's the business of hockey reporter over at The Athletic. He writes about national programs and national storylines tied to business and what teams are doing with the business and how they're reaching out. He just wrote about the Devils, and if you notice, the Devils haven't been good this year, but people are still writing about them. They're still getting a lot of play in the national headlines because they're an interesting team. You talked about the Buy Black program, which the article was super interesting, and I can't wait to talk to him about it because it really accentuates a program that I think is really cool. We get on I will get on the Devils management and everything for what they do on the ice, but off the ice, they've made some mistakes and we've called them out on it. Like when they were going to cut people's pay last year during the pandemic, they changed their minds because it was a bad idea. I appreciate that from an ownership group. I know people are mad at the owners. They want them to sell. Be careful what you wish for. I think Harris and Blitzer they do look at this as an asset, but I think that can be fruitful in the long run. You don't want, I'm trying to think. You don't want an owner. You don't want Jerry Jones as your owner, who's always meddling in things and making his own moves and calling himself the GM and things like that. You don't want that, because more often than not, it ends up in you not winning. You look at the Yankees dynasty, right? The Yankees dynasty only happened because George Steinbrenner got basically suspended. And Brian Cashman and a lot of the brass over there were able to put together a team without him meddling. You don't want meddlesome owners. You want him to trust his guys, and he trusts Tom Fitzgerald. They trusted Ray Shapiro. That was a mistake. It happens. You make the wrong hire sometimes. Ray Shapiro was the right hire at the time if Lou was always going to leave. And I think that giving it to Fitzgerald based on how everybody was out there and seeing what he's done, hiring Lindy Ruff, who I still think the jury is out on. He's making some decisions that I don't like, but I think the overall direction of the team is good. So it's kind of like 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. But anyway, back to Sean. He did that big piece in the Devils. He did a big piece in ESPN and hockey. He's doing stuff on the trade deadline. There's a lot to talk about with Sean. I'm very excited to have him on. He's going to be on in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, and the business of hockey. I even got the soundbite. So anytime he talks about business,
there you go.
I'm just kidding around.
You don't got the. You don't got the. I remember one time. I don't know. This is a random story. I went to one of those underground concert halls, and somebody played Pink Floyd's "Money," and he just took singles out and just threw them out in the crowd of like 20 people. And I was like, "Oh, that's nice." It was a $5 cover, and I'm going to make my money back just standing in this crowd.
Yeah, or you could be an LSU football player and have Odell Beckham Jr. just hand out $100 bills in the locker room.
Yeah, I don't know. You must be happy with Kenny Galladay. You got the Giants are looking all right. Still got Daniel Jones, though, so that's the problem.
You know what? I usually reserve my enthusiasm. Believe it when I see it, just like trade deadline, right? So
okay, then we'll focus on being excited about the Mets then.
Yeah. So let me get Sean. It's almost time, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
Benji's going crazy on the Facebook Live.
He's talking. Joey said that Benji is speaking Sam Wu. I guess that's the is it the language, the ultra positivity? Benji, I'm sorry to say, yesterday put the stake in the heart of this season. You could have been 7 points back. You had all it up in your hands. It was right for the taking, and you blew a 2-goal lead with 10 minutes left in the game. You sat back on your heels. You didn't get aggressive. You didn't play like you played in the first 40 minutes, and you lost because of it. Now you're 10 points back, and now it's basically over. Season's done. I can't see them coming back from this. They cannot do it. So yesterday was upsetting. So we'd move forward. Let's move forward. The trade deadline's coming. I'm excited to talk about the trade deadline. We're sellers again. That stinks. It is what it is. There's just nothing we can do about it. We just have to hope we win again. Look at last year. Last year, the Devils put in place the players that are making this team excited. They got Yanni Kuokkanen. They got Nolan Foote. They got Dawson Mercer, the pick that turned into Dawson Mercer. They got Nico Dawes is somebody who might be exciting in a couple of years. They got Nick Merkley. They got Kevin Ball. They got all these picks and prospects and players, and they got 2 picks in this year's draft. They got the Andy Green pick in this year's draft, and they got the Wayne Simmons pick in this year's draft. It's a 2nd and a 5th, so you got extra picks. And this year you don't have the assets that you had last year. You don't have a good Sami Vatanen. You don't have Taylor Hall. You don't have Blake Coleman. You don't have those assets that you had last year, but you still have enough. You still have enough to put together some good trade deadline deals. Kyle Palmieri on the TSN trade bait board is number 2. Number 2 in the trade bait board. David Savard's number 1. It's a weird board, but number 2 on the board. So that's going to be an exciting return once that comes in. Sam, you're back.
I'm back, and I'm back with our next guest. He is the writer for The Athletic. His name is Sean Shapiro. You can find him on Twitter at Sean Shapiro. Sean, you're on with
Easy.
Nick and Sam. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, we're doing great. Thanks very much for coming on, Sean. We wanted to give the Devils fans, it's been a weird season. So we figured we'd talk to the business of hockey guy to give them something else to talk about, except for reporters being like, so how bad is this team and how are we going to sell everything? So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, no problem. No problem. It has been from the far, obviously. Now it has been kind of a weird season to watch for New Jersey. So yeah, I can imagine what it's been like to have to watch every Devils game.
Yeah. Luckily, there's only 56 of them this year instead of 82, so at least we get a little bit of a reprieve. But it is every other day. But anyway, you wrote about the Devils, and we appreciate the national writers, spending time on the Devils. I think they're a very interesting team. They make a lot of interesting decisions, and they have a lot of interesting programs. One of those programs that you did a whole long piece on is their Buy Black program that they started last summer. After all the stuff that happened, with the protests and everything, that it was clear that the NHL needed to do something, and some teams have stepped up. And it looks like that this one, it's doing something. So I'm curious of how this program jumped out to you in the first place.
Yeah, so it is interesting because it's something where, as far as to kind of give the Devils a lot of credit, this kind of started from another story. I worked on a story with Ryan Clark where essentially roughly 9 months after the events of the events of one of the hallmark events in a bad way of 2020 was the death of George Floyd. And at that time, every NHL team within 4 or 5 days put out a statement basically saying, hey, we condemn racism and we're going to do something to help it in our respective community or on a national stage or something along those lines. And so one of my colleagues at The Athletic and I, Ryan Clark, and I we reached out to teams across the league. We also spoke to Kim Davis, who is the executive vice president of, I'm drawing a blank on her full title right now, but we spoke to Kim Davis as well. And some of the teams, just to be completely frank, when we reached out and asked about how have you followed up these statements, some teams were way more forthcoming and willing to talk about it than others, just to be honest. Some teams didn't respond to us. Some teams didn't. They kind of just linked us back to, hey, here's a press release we did or whatever. The Devils were really good from right off the bat of making. I spoke to team president Jake Reynolds about what they did, and I thought they did a really good job of just owning, hey, our words mean something. We're going to follow it up with real action. And between Harris Sports and basically creating a new position for diversity and inclusion and pledging $20 million over the course of the lifetime of this lifetime project and just the Buy Black program. It really was something where you talk about getting involved in a community and taking things beyond just a Twitter statement. I thought New Jersey did a great job with that because so many times it's hard to find the real life examples, and talking to the people from the Newark Paper Company and Flo's Treats, those are actual real examples. It's not just something we're saying, hey, to be blunt about it, it's not saying, hey, we're trying to get black people to our hockey game, because that's a lot of times what it comes down to. And instead, this was, we are actually engaging with the community. We are actually going to find those black businesses that we can support. And there's those two that they did partner with, the Newark Paper Company and Flo's Treats, but even there's an additional 5 as well that are getting help, that are being sponsored by a local black business organization through help of the Devils. And the Devils are giving these partners the type of resources that an NHL team, a multi-million-dollar organizations have that a small business can never have. You look at the marketing arm and the PR arm and just graphics and digital and all that stuff that it would take it would take a small one-person business like Flo from Flo's Treats years to get something like that. And so I thought what the Devils did with that really put action to words, and that's why I feel it's important that we highlight stories like that. And I think it's something as a league too we should continue. It's a small thing as a media member. It's by no way is it going to say all of a sudden another team will do something like that. But I think if we continue to highlight things like that, I think it brings more attention to it. It's also teams kind of continue to see the value of it, for lack of a better word. I'm not taking credit for anything anyone else does, but I think as a media member, it's our kind of responsibility to, if we're going to ask teams what they did, we also need to highlight when teams do go above and beyond like New Jersey did. And that's kind of what stood out to me with this.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved the idea of the program. I didn't know about the action as much. You know, they throw out the press releases, but every team does that. So it is, you're right. It's good on media members to vet these things and say when something's good and say when something's bad. I think we all, you know, a lot of media members, you know, and my background's in news. So I understand this situation that, you know, you can fall down a path and just kind of keep going down that path. But if you kind of look at both sides of the coin and you hold people accountable while also, you know, I don't want to say giving them a pat on the back, but, you know, giving them praise when they deserve it, I think that it makes these situations where, you know, teams do want to do stuff and it gives them that motivation. Like, oh, okay, like I have more motivation than just being good for the community.
Mm-hmm. And it's another thing too with all of it. It's kind of an element too of you look at it. It also kind of sets, and I look at it from my role too. Just now, obviously, I'm kind of in a unique role as someone who covers the business of hockey and mostly and more off ice things in general. But it sets a bit of a precedent that this is something we're going to cover and we're going to ask about, and it's going to be normal. And asking and the Devils had a really good answer, but there's other teams where if we reach out and ask, and it's something where you obviously have to give time and space for teams to follow through on these promises. But in a year from now, or 6 months from now, or Kim Davis from the NHL said she hopes by the end of 2021 to see teams hit more benchmarks. We've set more of a precedent, or I feel like in my own work, I've set more of a precedent of being able to ask about it at the end of 2021. It's not going to be kind of one of those gotcha moments where it's like, well, you didn't ask about it for 18 months. So it's going to be, hey, we have asked about it, and we're going to ask about it again. And I think it's a good precedent to set just for myself personally as we cover things like this. And you obviously highlight the good, and you continue to ask about it. And I also think it applies a little bit of that, just kind of checking teams that, hey, if you're going to make statements and you're going to go through and claim action, you actually have to follow through with action at some point. It's not just it can't just be here's a tweet and then forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like I said, the Devils have done a good job of that. Putting that action behind the press release. But I do want to switch gears. You know, you're the business guy, and there's been a lot of business news, and there's going to be more business news over the next 6 months. But the biggest business news of the past 6 months, besides the collective bargaining agreement, I don't know what the timeline on that. I'd have to double check. But besides that is the ESPN deal. It's going to influx a ton of money into the league. And then there's another deal that's on its way. That's a lot of people are assuming it's probably going to be NBC Sports because they have the Peacock network. They still have the channel for now. I don't know how long that's going to last, but they have places to put it. But, you know, if that's Fox Sports, whatever. What I want you to tell me, from somebody who's been studying this for, you know, over a year now, what is your expectation on the impact on the game and the fan experience of these TV deals?
Yeah, it's, the biggest one, first of all, is we just have to talk about ESPN first, because ESPN coming into play, and I think there's two key parts to the ESPN deal that are really big. One is it's the ESPN a lot of times gets too much credit for being the driver in sports, but one of the true things about ESPN that when you think about, whenever we are in a place in this world again, where you can go to a sports bar, right? Where you can go to a sports bar or you go to any place and there's a bar behind the TV, it's on ESPN all the time. It's not on NBC Sports Network. It's not on Fox. And so as much as ESPN does get too much credit sometimes, one of the things we have to give credit to ESPN is this gets the NHL back into the American sports bar, basically. Whether it's a live game on a Wednesday or a Thursday night, whichever day they decide to make that national game, or just even being more featured in the highlight shows in SportsCenter and everything like that. And I know one of the easy low-hanging fruit jokes is, oh, ESPN doesn't know hockey. Well, ESPN promotes the hell out of products that they have the rights to. Look at the NBA, look at the NFL, look at baseball. And so hockey is going to have more and more of an emphasis now in the highlight shows and SportsCenter and everything like that. So from that perspective, getting it back into the populace of that's huge from my perspective. And then the other really big thing is I think having the out-of-market TV package on ESPN Plus is going to be the really big thing, actually, because right now there is a niche market for the NHL TV. If you're looking for NHL TV, if you're subscribing to NHL TV, you are either already the hardcore hockey fan who's going to subscribe where it is no matter what, or you're the person who's moved away and all of a sudden you're trying to find your old team. That is the only people who subscribe to NHL TV. ESPN Plus now, all of a sudden, say you've got a Devils fan say you've got someone from New Jersey who isn't really a huge hockey fan. But you know what? I'm going to subscribe to ESPN Plus because it's $6 a month and they've got all of this. And say they live in Atlanta or something like that. Well, they may watch 5 or 6 Devils games a year now because, hey, I'm paying $6 a month and I'm going to get this, where they would never pay for just the out-of-market NHL TV. So it makes the game for the out-of-market so much more accessible to the average fan, because you're already going to get that dedicated fan anyway, no matter where you put it. And so the average kind of the residual fan, it gives so much more access to it. Same way for example, when I'm flipping through in the summer, they have the MLS TV deal on there, and I'm a big soccer fan, but I'm not a big MLS fan. Well, I'll flip on whatever MLS game is on there. You'll have people who will treat the NHL like that. And so I think getting that is going to be a really big long-term effect of this, of being able to kind of have those people who are the sports fan who, you know what, I'm not a hockey fan, but I'll check out hockey because it's a part of my $6 a month package. I think that's going to grow the game a ton in a way that NHL TV and streaming never could have in the past.
Yeah, I think it will. I think it's going to make so many impacts on this game, and it's such a positive. I agree with you. The streaming is huge. Just the boredom on a random Tuesday night, looking for something to watch, and you're flipping through your apps, and eventually you're just like, "Whatever. Oh, there's a hockey game. Oh, my friends are Devils fans. Let me see what's going on." And it's like, "Oh, I heard of this Jack Hughes guy," and then it snowballs. I think you're exactly right. I think that's something that I think fans may not think of in the long term. They only think of the short term. They're getting such and such amount of dollars for it, and that's going to influx money in the league. But speaking of short term, I do want to transition the trade deadlines in a couple weeks. And the business of hockey has just completely changed how we're looking at the trade deadline. Teams don't have money because of the cap. Teams aren't willing to make a run to the playoffs because there's no playoff gate to give them that extra influx of cash in the offseason. There's just a lot of different reasons why teams aren't buying at the trade deadline, but there's some positivity. There's the vaccine. There's a couple different reasons why maybe with a few days, I think there's 8 or 9 or 9 or 10 days until the trade deadline, they could see some optimism. So as somebody who really focuses on the business side of things and knows how much the business side has changed how teams are thinking this year, what are you thinking for the trade deadline this year? What is your expectation?
Yeah, I mean, I still think, even though there are some more impacts and some teams, I think it's still going to, I don't think there's enough to really punch a lot of juice into it like past years. I just don't think there's enough there. I do think there's places like, I think in particular, like you look at the Central Division, you kind of look at that race right now for the fourth spot. Like there's a pretty clear in the Central. There's a pretty clear. It's Tampa, it's Carolina, it's Florida. Those three teams, and we kind of know there's the fourth team could be Nashville, it could be Chicago, it could be Dallas. And I think that's kind of one of the few divisions where, because all of those teams, with the exception of Chicago, kind of fighting for that fourth spot, are actually getting more and more people in the building. And while you have a team like Dallas or Nashville, who in a year, obviously owners always want to win, but now the fact that maybe you get a playoff gate kind of puts a little bit more kind of oomph into your GM of like, maybe we don't want to sell. Maybe we want to make sure we're sticking around. I don't think it turns any of those teams into a buyer, but I think it may keep some of those teams from selling who are kind of in that area, and particularly look at the Central. Like, obviously, you look up at Canada and the California teams and all those teams, they're not going to have fans no matter what. So it doesn't have as much of an impact there. But really in the Central, if I'm an owner of the Nashville Predators, an owner of the Dallas Stars, or the Columbus Blue Jackets, even if I'm dropping to 5th or 6th or anything like that, and I'm looking at the deadline, I'm like, I'm not telling my GM to sell because there's a chance to get a little bit of gate in the playoffs at least. But I'm also not telling them to buy too. So I think maybe it limits some of the number of sellers. I also think the other thing too, just that COVID has done, and this is not just to this deadline, this is overall, is we're going to have that flat cap for at least 3 or 4 years. And so GMs have to plan, and they aren't going to get any outs. They aren't really going to get any outs with the cap going up next summer, so they can't be as active and as much as they'd like, and maybe acquire that guy when they've got someone in LTIR and stuff like that. So it's more on the macro, it's more on the kind of the micro impact right now than I'd like to. I wish I could tell you right now, hey, it'll create this crazy deadline. That would be way more exciting for all of us. But it's maybe one of those years where the trade shows are. Do you guys remember like 4 or 5 years ago on TSN, they were like chasing llamas around on the trade show or something like that? Like
I do remember that. That was weird.
I don't know if it'll be that bizarre, but like I wonder if we end up having to see kind of some filler on those trade shows like that.
Yeah, I don't know if Pierre LeBrun is looking to have any kind of activities like that this year on TSN. You would know better than me, though, Sean. But Sean, I really appreciate you giving me some of your time and talking directly to the Devils fans. There was so much to talk about. I can't wait to see more of your work. What do you got working on? What are you working on now? You got anything cool coming out, or do you have anything that's come out in the past couple of days?
Yeah. So kind of one of the things that it's just kind of and I don't even understand who the buyer is, just something that I've written about that just people from a business standpoint in sports really need to just keep an eye on. And if it's cool to you, great. Maybe you're one of the buyers of this, but there's the whole non-fungible token NFT thing. I wrote something about that the other day with Matthew Tkachuk. Personally, I don't understand who the buyer is on that, because personally, I'm not someone who would buy something that's non-fungible, but it's going to become a big part of the sports space we're going to. That's something people to pay attention to. And then another thing, just that's I've been kind of working on just to tease for some point, is like, and I apologize because I'm not sure the exact branding that the Devils goalies wear, so I can't give the exact, but I'm working on something right now, just kind of looking at essentially in the goaltending world right now, from a business perspective, about a third of the NHL goalies basically changed their brand from CCM to True goaltending pads within the past year. And there's kind of a fun backstory behind it that I've got on my editor's desk, and that not sure if it's publishing later this week or early next. So something kind of to people to look forward to on that.
Yeah, and Sean, on the non-fungible token thing, I'm excited to read that because I'm on your page in The Athletic, because me and my anchor talk all the time about Bitcoin and kind of like the next trend, but we've tried to talk about this. We tried to be like, how do you figure out how these things make money? And I feel like it's just one of those things, like influencers, like social media influencers, where if you don't understand it off the bat, you're too old for it. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and that seems like that seems like a good way to put it, because it's one of those things where it's intrinsic value and all of it is scarcity, and it's so at some point I do wonder. I just wonder how much of that market is people who actually enjoy an NFT, for lack of a better word, and people who think, oh, there's other people who enjoy them, so I can resell them to those people at some point. And that's a market where I think it's definitely something that is going to have an impact right now. But like, there's certain trend. Is it a Twitter, or is it like a Beanie Babies, where like people all of a sudden 6 years later are cleaning out their basement and like, well, why did I spend hundreds of bucks on this? Like we so we'll see.
Well, Sean, thanks so much for teaching us about the business of the league and kind of giving us some insight and what to expect. So everybody, we've told you, subscribe to The Athletic. They're running specials all the time. I still think that the $1 special is happening. So subscribe for Sean, subscribe for everybody else. But once again, Sean, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Everyone have a good night.
Thanks, Sean. That is Sean Shapiro.
Sam, I don't think your mic's on.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It sucks when you screw
Being
up.
very, very quiet. Honestly, we forget to turn the mics off, and we're a news station. So,
yeah.
When I say we, not me and you, but
the reason
my normal job.
The reason why I shut the mic off was because you're in the middle of the interview, and I had to talk to my wife, and I didn't want to, be, spewing out. Oh, so what color do you think the house should be painted? All that kind of stuff. On a wonderful conversation. So at least I didn't screw up the interview. I just screwed up after the interview, right? And I was about to say, buy Doge. Just buy Doge.
Buy Doge. I used to have
Doge,
but I sold everything because a certain app kind of beat me for some money, and I did not like it, so I sold it all. Oh, this is what I do, Sam. I get mad at things, and then I quit completely, and that's what I did with this app for stocks. But yeah. Anyway, so with these non-fungible tokens, Sam, I was looking at it today actually, and I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense. There's a video of Thanos from the Avengers twerking, and that one's going for $3,000. It's basically a gift.
I got
Thanos twerking.
I got an even better one. Somebody in New York created an NFT of him farting, sold for $85.
Like, who's buying this?
I actually, in full disclosure, actually looked into how to make one and how to do it, and I found a few companies, but they wanted so much information about me before they could. I was like, I don't know about this.
It's like there are so many markets, and here's the thing, Sam. There's a lot of young people who there's a lot of people who lost their job through the pandemic, and that was heartbreaking. But there's a lot of people who weren't allowed to go out, and weren't allowed to spend the money on what they're usually spending. So they just have stupid money. Like the baseball card, and this is perfect. The basketball card market is through the roof right now, and people are buying these rookies from this year's rookie class. This year's rookies class is trash. Like LaMelo Ball is good, whatever. Like I don't have to get into it, but this year's rookies class is like the NHL rookie class, which is like it's a lot of flyers. There's no Jack Hughes. There's definitely no Connor McDavid. There's definitely no Austin Matthews, but there's not even Jack Hughes or a Lafreniere. There's no like clear number one guy who's going to become a superstar. And that's how the NBA is. There's all these little guys, but they're paying thousands of dollars for these players. I remember once, and this is when I was like, I'm never going to spend big money on cards ever again. Somebody paid like and I would never, I don't have this kind of money, but somebody spent $500,000 on a Ryan Nugent Hopkins, like 1/1 card. And that's not worth that anymore. Ryan Nugent Hopkins had a fine career, but he did not have I'm going to spend $500,000 on a card of his. So that and I guess the people who get to do that have screw you money, so they can make those kinds of decisions. When you're paying $3,000 for a twerking Thanos, I guess $30,000 is not much to you, right? I guess you'll put off the down payment on the next boat until next week when you get the next influx of stock money. But yeah, it's but I feel like we've gone on a tangent of tokens. I think we should talk hockey again.
Well, it is kind of hockey because I know the NHL. The NHL is looking into it, I believe. If I
are they?
remember that correctly. All the leagues are, because it's essentially from what I understand, it's like individual, like intellectual property rights,
right?
Yeah, like
you can,
intellectual
buy a
property
highlight of
rights.
something.
Yeah. So, but again, you're right. Enough about blockchain and all that kind of good stuff. That's on another network.
That part's beyond me. But I do want to talk about the trade deadline, Sam. First of all, here's what I want to ask you, because I think Palmieri's gone, but I want to ask you what you would do with Palmieri if Palmieri, because from what I've heard, is that he's asking for either 5 or 6 years, and that's it. That's the only thing he's going to sign now, or he'll wait till free agency. If that's the case, the money doesn't seem like it's crazy. I think it's like around 5 to 6. So that's not fine. That's fine. But it's terms of the years. If that's his stance, are you willing to give him that, or are you just trying to get the best possible deal at the deadline? Or does it not matter what he wants? You just want to sell the asset?
Well, I don't think. Do you think Palmieri can get 5 or 6 years elsewhere in this climate?
I don't.
I don't think so. I mean, I think he overvaluated himself, not because he's not a bad player. It's just, you heard what Sean said. Salary cap flat for the next 4 years.
There are teams that are already over next year's salary cap.
Yeah, so with that said, it sucks for Palmieri because he's on a contract year. The pandemic, he should ask as much as possible, but we have to be realistic here. If I was Palmieri, I'd bet on, if I was Palmieri, I would bet on myself. But if I was Tom Fitzgerald, I think it's time to move him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think he's the best asset you have. I wrote the trade piece tomorrow, and some of them I reached. Like I'm hoping that a lot, like Nashville, like he said, like Columbus, Nashville, like Sean said, Dallas don't sell because there's that shot of getting that playoff revenue. But there's plenty of sellers. Detroit's going to sell. Ottawa's, I don't know who Ottawa has to sell. I'm sure there's somebody, but Ottawa's going to sell whatever they can. Buffalo is obviously selling everything that's not bolted down. That includes their own scouts. So it's a situation where there's very few sellers, right? And it looked like it looked like Vancouver was going to sell. It looked like Nashville was going to sell. It looked like Columbus was going to sell. It looked like a lot of other teams. Like it looked like Los Angeles might still sell, but it doesn't look like that they're selling anymore. San Jose is somebody who we thought were going to sell, but it doesn't sound like they're selling anymore. Arizona is another team. They're right there. They can make the playoffs, so maybe they won't sell. Arizona is another one of those communities that's very open. So they might be able to get a lot of people in arena and make up some of that money with playoff revenue. So that leaves like 5 teams that are definitely selling. The Devils being one of them. I think the Devils have the most intriguing players. Maybe if you look at pure talent, Buffalo has better players than Montour and Taylor Hall, and obviously Eichel, but I don't know if that's going to happen during the season. I think that's an off-season trade. And they have other pieces like that. But, the Devils have unrestricted free agents in Palmieri, Zajac, Gusev, Murray, Kulikov, and Vatanen. And then Here's the under the radar one, Sam. Aaron Dell. There's a reason that they have not put Aaron Dell on waivers. He's just sitting there on the roster. Did you realize that, Sam? Did you realize that he's on the roster?
Mm-hmm.
He's not on the taxi squad. He's not anywhere else. He's a healthy scratch every night. And there's not many rosters holding on to 3 goalies. The reason why the Devils are holding on to Aaron Dell is to trade him. I don't think he's going to get a good asset, but you got him for free. He played 2 games. He was average at best, but people know what he is. He's there to clean up. Toronto had him for a reason, and Toronto could really use him right now. Freddie Anderson's hurt. I think they're switching between like 4 goalies right now. So I think a team's going to trade a 5th-round pick for Dell, which would be nice. A nice little extra asset. The Devils have done well with 5th-round picks, as we've known in the past. I think, isn't Sharon Govich a 5th-round pick, right? Or is he a 4th? I think he's a 4th. Somebody was a 5th-round pick. It's hard to keep track of all these late-round picks, Sam. I know Jesper was a 6th, but they've done well with late-round picks in the past. And I think Murray's going to get something interesting. I don't think it's going to be a ton, but I think it's going to be better than the 5th-round pick we spent on him. I think that Vatanin's going to get something interesting. I think the reason why they played him on the power play last night in 4-on-3 is because they want to build his value. I think he's going to get something interesting. He sold for a ton more than I thought he was going to last season. I think that Kulikov, I think they're going to value Kulikov very highly. And they're not just going to sell him because he's done a lot for PK Subban, and there's an argument to re-sign him. I wouldn't mind it. We need defensemen for next season. Like, Walsh and Ball are not ready. So we do need defensemen for next season. So if you re-sign him, I'm cool with it. I'm not going to give him up for a 4th-round pick. Like, you got to give me a prospect and a 2nd for him. And if that's not his value, then keep him. I don't mind keeping Kulikov. But, and then Gusev's going to go for, like, I think they're going to hope and pray that a team like Pittsburgh gets desperate and you can make the salary cap work, like maybe take on a salary back, and then they'll give you like a 2022 3rd. I think that's the hope. But it's a hope. It's a prayer. Yeah. He has value. He's a good player. He's just broken. And I don't think we can fix him. But I think if you put him there with Malkin, you put him in a line with Malkin, they're playing Evan Rodriguez on the second line. They could absolutely use Gusev. And Malkin will make sure he doesn't have to do a lot of defensive work, and he won't get them hemmed in their own zone. He'll break him out for big plays. I think the Pittsburgh, that's the one I'll spoil it for you. Gusev to Pittsburgh is the one that makes the most sense of the trades I did tomorrow. I won't give you all the details so you can read the article, but I have Gusev going to Pittsburgh because it makes sense. And then what do you think, Sam? What do you think happens with Travis Zajac?
That's a tough question because when you have Sharon Govich and Kokkonen, they still need to mature as players, meaning they're developing. And do you want to take out Zajac off this team? Mm-hmm. He is a leader. He's a mentor. He's maybe in some ways a teacher, a player with experience, lifelong Devil. That's tough. That's a tough call. I think the Devils should keep him for that reason. Mm-hmm. Can you re-sign him next year? Well, is what Sean said before. In this market, where would Zajac go and get fair market value?
I mean, I guess the Islanders. But the Islanders, like with that Anders Lee injury, kind of changed what
that's true
they're looking for. I mean, there was rumors they're going after a Hall, and that just doesn't make any sense. Like, it makes sense on the ice, but it doesn't make sense for what Lou usually looks for. I think, if Lou was going for anything, I don't know how this would work with the salary cap, but I think he would revisit that Zach Parise trade he made last year. We just forget that Lou traded for Zach Parise. Someone leaked it to the media, and he just killed it. He literally got asked about it on TSN. I watched it, and then he pretended like his connection cut off when they asked about Parise. It was the most great. It was the best Lou move that he's made since he's left the Devils. He literally sits there and he talks about because did they trade for Peugeot last year? I know I'm drawing a blank on this. I think it was the Peugeot deal was last year, right?
Think so.
So we talk about the Peugeot deal. They're asking about the Peugeot deal, and then one of the analysts sneaks a Zach Parise question in. He's like, "Oh, so you just got word that you traded for Zach Parise?" He's like, "Can you comment on that?" He goes, "I think I lost him." Takes off his thing and leaves. It's the most boss move. I mean, Lou's the greatest. I love Lou. I've turned back around on Lou. No, I never hated Lou. I was always just like, we'll look at how bad, you kind of have to go to the other side. Well, it made sense that he left because it seems like him and the Devils were heading to divorce anyway. Sometimes you just got to cut the cord. But now I'm appreciating what he did for this franchise and how good he was for so long. And he's still really good. He just needed a reset. I think you kind of get into your own, you get into a routine and nobody's holding you accountable because you can't hold Lou accountable. He did so many great things for his franchise, but it's like Belichick in New England, right? He had 10 bad drafts in a row, but who the heck is going to tell Belichick what to do or that he's messing up? It's not going to happen. So the problem is that Belichick's also the coach. So there's so much ingrained there that you can't do anything.
Lesson learned in the past, the history of sports. Anytime you get a figure that's bigger than the team or the sport itself, could be
not good.
It's not good. I mean, being at Penn State Joe Paterno was like everything. Everything. But in the end, when he got fired by the Board of Trustees, it was a cruel reminder they have the power to do that, whether you like it or not, right? So, and everybody's vulnerable. But Lou was, he was untouchable in New Jersey. And, you have to respect ownership's idea of, we want to do it our way.
Yeah.
So they parted ways, right?
Yeah.
So, Brendan Shanahan called Joshua Harris, asked for permission, and that's how it came about. So, that's how the story came.
Yeah. And Lou made some good decisions in Toronto, and he made some bad ones. And he's made some good decisions in New York, and he's made some bad ones. But the good decisions he's made in New York outweigh the bad ones by such a margin. He's making good draft picks. He's making good, some of the signings aren't great, but every GM makes bad signings. Every single one, or trades, or, you take on salaries that aren't great, and it is what it is. We're stuck with Andreas Janssen for a while. I don't think that if Seattle doesn't take him, I don't think we're in that bad a shape. I think he'll figure it out. The fact that he's playing the penalty kill is interesting. Did you notice that?
He's playing the penalty kill?
Yeah, they're playing Janssen on the penalty kill. So I guess Lindy Ruff is trying to build his confidence, and that penalty kill unit it's been a unit over the past month. Even really, I think what were they, fourth in the league or something at penalty kill in March? I'm sure tonight's game is going to skew it a little bit, but that's from what they were. And Blackwood's been phenomenal on the penalty kill. So that's a lot of it, and Wedgwood's good too. I don't want to take anything away from Wedgwood, but it's the Devils are in a position where they have all these pieces, and they have trade assets. They have interesting trade assets at Miles Wood and PK Subban too, because their value, if you ask me, is higher now than it's going to be next year. So do you sell high on these assets, or do you hope that you continue to get this value? Because I don't think you're getting higher this value. Miles Wood is not going to – I think he's on a 23 or so goal pace, something like that. That might be a little high. I think he's basically on like a 20-goal pace. How often is Miles Wood going to score 20 goals in his career? PK Subban's on a really good pace playing with Kulikov. He doesn't have to be the guy on the line anymore. He can make some mistakes, and Kulikov can make up for them. How often is PK Subban going to be this good anymore? He has quickness against Sam. I noticed that there's some quickness. There's a little giddy up in his step, and there's a little bit of a different look to him. Last year, he just looked washed. This year, he's still making mistakes, but he doesn't look washed. He looks like he looks like a guy who lost a step, but he doesn't look like a guy who can't play anymore. And somebody made a good point. Like, you kind of compare the salary. No, he's not a $9 million a year player anymore, but he's a 4. Somebody would pay him 4 if he was on the open market this season. So if the Devils cover half his salary for next year, what does he get on the trade market? I think you can get the second back that you lost in the Gusev trade, but is that worth it? Because you got to look at next year too, Sam. And the cupboard is bare. If you trade Subban, and you expect Vatanen to be gone, you got Severson on the right side. That's it. So unless you're bringing back Vatanen, who I don't think a lot of people would want to bring back Vatanen, but if you bring back Vatanen, then that's one guy who's an NHL caliber at least. But you're still, like I said, the young guys aren't ready to go. So I think that you're in bad shape if you trade Subban. I think you just keep him. You don't need it. It doesn't matter. But again, it all depends on what somebody's offering. If somebody's offering more than a second or an interesting prospect, it's worth having the conversation.
Well, I agree. Totally agree. It's sad. It's more think of it when you talk about trades. Some of these players are our favorite players. So, I like Zajac. I like Palmieri. But it's time to move on. These are hard decisions. Can you envision Zajac and Palmieri on the team 5 years from now? And what would that look like? Not so much Zajac,
Yeah, I think Zajac's retiring within 5 years, but Palmieri, if you give him a 5-year contract, you would want him to be a 20-goal scorer for that entire time based on what you're paying him. And I don't know if you can do that at 34, 35.
Mm-hmm. Well, it should be very interesting. Tomorrow's April Fool's.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I don't see something, because sometimes that happens.
Oh, they'll put fake things out there?
Yeah. But yeah, if you're going to pull off a blockbuster trade, Tom Fitzgerald, do it tomorrow, because we won't believe it.
Just throw everybody off. We'll go an hour being like, all right, say psych. Please say psych.
Yeah.
But I think that's it, Sam. I think we covered everything. Binghamton's heading to overtime. Nolan Foote looks like Nolan Foote tied them up in the third.
Graham Clark. That kid.
Graham Clark has been on fire. Scored his 5th goal of the season to open the scoring about 30 seconds in the game. So it's not what you want in Binghamton, Sam, because they've been losing a lot. But the players you want to be playing well are playing well. I have high hopes for Graham Clark. I have high hopes for Nolan Foote. I want a little bit more from that defense. That's why I say they're not ready, because they're getting hemmed in Binghamton. But that's something we'll talk about. But yeah, remember, I got that trade piece coming out tomorrow. So everybody go to puckspitchforks.com. We got another interesting trade piece. We have every writer, most of the writers, doing a collaborative piece that's going to come out, I think, on Saturday morning. So make sure you check that out.
Yeah, and also enjoy the day tomorrow. The Devils aren't playing. They play Friday against the Washington Capitals. Look out for the Woo Report and post-game on Friday. Nick, it was a pleasure. Until next time, let's go Devils.